Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Step into the Pivot. We are so happy to have you join us again, and so happy to have our guest today who we've been trying to get on here for a while. So, welcome to Step into the Pivot. This is Yolanda Reyes White. So, Yolanda, we're so happy to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here, and I know it's been a little while since you both asked me to be on the podcast. So I'm happy and I'm ready now to talk.
All right, awesome. Well, we're happy to have you share your story, and I've known you for a couple years, so I think this is going to be really fun. So, Evie, I'm going to let you kind of take it over.
Yes, thank you, Yolanda, for your yes. We've chatted about you joining us for a while because you do have quite a few really wonderful stories to share. And I wanted to start by saying that from the perspective of your bio, which, we don't go into a lot, people can read about you in the show notes, and we always include links that, allow them to connect with you further. And in your case, really important to highlight that you are a relationship manager. So we met in that way, financial services, retirement plan industry, and as a relationship manager, I mean the definition of it is you're responsible for building and retaining relationships. And
Yes.
we're not going to talk much about work, but I'm sure that some of those themes are going to come up. Um, Prefacing all of this by saying that the pivots that you've experienced, like so many of us, include relationships. Tell us about what it is. What major life event or circumstances really shaped you?
Sure. Well, first let me start out by saying thank you for pointing that out. My title officially is relationship manager, and I will say that I've taken so many of the, personality or strengths or skills tests, and it always will typically highlight for me in any of those types of tests that relationship skills are one of my stronger points. So I do think I'm in the right position. Um, so what I was going to start out by talking about today is about a few events that sort of happened simultaneously that created um, one big pivot in my life. So in February of 2020, I became a mother. And within the following couple of weeks, the world shut down due to the global pandemic that happened. So my husband and I had a new baby at home, and we're looking forward to some beautiful bonding time with her. We were also looking forward to more of the support and the guidance that we had already began to receive from our family and friends. When our employers closed their doors just 2 weeks later, we really felt the need, and it was requested for us to join back to our work teams, virtually, of course. And that was for us to figure out what was happening and what the plan was for us and for our colleagues as we navigated what we didn't understand and was kind of a complete mystery at that point of this new, headline event that was happening. What we didn't realize at that point was that we were about to embark on a year-long plus isolation for the three of us that really changed our trajectory in so many ways. And probably, we still have more to uncover there completely.
Well, it's like your plans got all like this is what you're planning, and now, of course, and the pandemic did that to so many people. So,
Yeah,
tell us
yeah.
maybe a little bit about how the plan shifted, right? Like, what was your original plan, and then what did it become?
The original plan was very naively, we were going to take a very short time period off of work together for parental leave. And then we were going to spend the time, bond, and then we were both going to go back to work. And she was going to go into a um, a daycare preschool that was right across the street from my work, so I could go, throughout the day and check on her and make sure everything was okay and that she was doing well. And then we were going to continue our professional lives and start raising our child.
Yeah.
I laugh about it now because that is just so opposite of what happened.
Yeah.
What ended up happening was that we had closer to 2 years at home with our child, and I couldn't imagine it now any other way. And I know that I want to be careful of what I say there because the pandemic was um, impacted so many of us in such profound and hard ways throughout that time period. And for the three of us, it was also very hard, but there would have been no other situation that I can think of where a parent in the United States would be able to stay at home with their child for an entire year or longer. So for us, that ended up, looking back on it now, so many years later, I can look back and say that was a very fortunate time for the three of us to be able to actually have that time together.
Yeah, I can really, just as you're saying this, I have a few memories from that time come up and the testing, essentially what you're saying against, my own experiences. And then I see, Liam and I in the kitchen cooking together and Liam cooking, Liam learning to cook, making these family meals. And, you know, if I'm just looking at that as an isolated experience, that wouldn't have happened. And it was such a blessing. And
Mhm.
when we say that and we really focus on the good of it, of course, that doesn't diminish, like you were also saying, that this was an incredibly challenged time for so
Mhm.
many. And
Yes.
so, but finding these like, wow, that was really interesting. So I know that just using the super simple example of us being able to make homemade meals had an impact on our health um and our emotional and mental health journey. Anything that you like to highlight from that perspective? I'm just scratching the surface with my little
Oh,
example, but
yeah.
it was such a time of personal growth and, for so many of us.
Yes, it was certainly, I mean, there's so many things to say there. But for me becoming a mother during this time, I looked at it as a reinvention of myself from a personal growth perspective, as well as, all the other things, mental, emotional, physical health, all of those things. It felt like a complete turn everything upside down, shake it all out, and start over again. Um, from a personal growth and emotional perspective or emotional health perspective, I had to go back to and into places within myself I didn't even know existed. I had to do that because they were coming out in front of me every day with all the things I didn't know about being a mother and taking care of my daughter, and with all the things I didn't know about that were happening in front of us, happening in the world every single day. Some days I thought, I can go back and feel that they were uncertain and I felt scared and overwhelmed. And then, just like that, something beautiful and magical would happen at home that would remind me of my mission. Um, Things like, a small breakthrough with my daughter where I could anticipate what she needed, or even being able to go outside for a walk in the sunshine. I mean, there was a time during the pandemic when in Oregon where it was so smoky because of wildfires. We were asked to stay inside because the smoke was unhealthy to breathe. And so not only were we going through this isolation with the pandemic, and then all of a sudden you couldn't go outside. So a walk outside in the sunshine. Or, there were so many stories of hope that you could find out in the news during that time period. So the personal growth was really tremendous during this time, and really continues to be um, even today. It was a kickstart, I think, for me to explore what was important and what were my core values, and then how I was going to show up during that time for other people.
I love that you call it a kickstart, honestly. I was gonna say like a reset. It's like somebody puts that reset button, but I kind of like the kickstart. Because it is true, right? Even though that was a terrible time and we heard about all kinds of bad things, there were some good things. Like sometimes we need to take that step back, right? And it's something we've talked about a lot. And some people do it when they have a health issue or something else, right? For
Yeah.
you, I think maybe it gave you that time with your daughter that you weren't planning on, but made it so much more impactful in so many ways,
Mhm.
right? Is that how you'd view it? Did I summarize that up pretty well?
Yeah, that was exactly, yeah. I mean, and that's the thing that I try, again, that I try and be careful of when I'm talking about that time during the pandemic, because I do know that it was so tremendously hard for so many people.
It was.
Um,
It was. And we're not discounting
yeah,
that. We're
yeah,
just, that we have to also look at the positives sometimes that
right,
come out of bad situations and
right,
taking that reset, right? Like not all the situations come out positive on the other side, but there's usually something positive we could take out of every situation. And
sure.
that's really, really have to be part of it. So um yeah, I think it's a great story to tell.
Well,
I'm
thank
curious
you.
about those values, Yolanda. When you said, I got really in touch with my core values. I love
Mhm.
the um, I love the teachings that point us in the direction of boundaries from the perspective of values. So considering that when I am implementing a boundary, really what I'm doing is not trying to shut anybody out, but really advocating for my value. So
Mhm.
in the context of, let's say, a work setting, if I am saying no to happy hours, let's say now we're in non-pandemic time or
Yeah,
pre-pandemic time, I'm remembering some of my like actual experiences of um, being a single mom and choosing not to hang out with wonderful colleagues with whom I did want more in-person time socializing after work, but choosing to go pick up Liam and be with him on Friday afternoon, Friday evening. And that really felt like a boundary in place, but really it was a representation of a value and me being a good steward of the value of, time with my boy, as
yeah.
opposed to boundary against happy hour. So can you tell us more about these core values? What were they and how do you maybe also how do you make sure to, stand up for them or advocate for them today?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I think that that's something that I'm working on and continue to work on today. Is that um, I identify my core values really as family and community, independence, and then wisdom, in a sense of that I think that I am a kind of a lifetime learner. I love to learn, continue to learn new things. And so that's what I mean by wisdom. And so if I can remind myself, even from, on a daily basis, is what I have on my agenda each day align with one of those values? Am I doing something within my community to be part of the larger entity of community? Am I doing something that aligns with my value of family, or am I doing something that aligns with my value of being independent and being able to do things on my own and for myself? Or am I doing something throughout the day where I'm learning something new, or I'm being curious about a situation that then I can say that I'm aligning with my values. I feel like the next piece that for me that came from that, or like level two of that, is to then be able to make decisions in a way that aligns with uh, my values. And that's what I think you're talking about with having boundaries. And I think that's something I'm still working on, because I tend to want to be part of all the communities, or I tend to be, want to learn all of the things. And so what I learned from identifying values and understanding that there's boundaries there, is then to sort of try and hold those boundaries and not learn everything all at once, or not be part of every community group, or whatever example you might use.
No, and I love that you put it in that perspective, right? Because we do have to make sure, and sometimes that means saying no, right? I mean, that's where the boundary comes in, and the fact that you talk about that, right? Like sometimes you just have to say no, that there's a boundary, maybe it doesn't align, or maybe the family's more important at this moment
Right.
than this project at work, or
Mhm.
whatever that looks like. And I think you're like a lot of us that, and we talked with somebody the other day who definitely comes right out and says, I'm a people pleaser, right? I want to say yes to everything. I want to please everybody around me, even to my own detriment. And I love that you put it in that perspective, that these are my values. These are the things I'm working on. These are the things I make sure align, and set a boundary. And sometimes that has to be no. I
Yeah.
don't know. That's my thought on it.
Yeah. I think being a little bit um, a little bit introverted helps with that, where
Mhm.
you're just like, meh, that sounds fun, but I'm just not, no, I have to go and recharge. Like I know myself, I can do a lot of networking and, you know, um, um, visiting and making
Yeah.
connections and connecting other people. And then I have to recharge, and the way that I recharge is to
Yeah.
be
And
by
don't,
myself.
yeah. And don't feel that's just you. Like I'm completely an extrovert and I still need to recharge, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
sometimes, right, you just need that for yourself and need to kind of set that stage. So you're an introvert, I'm an extrovert, and I still feel we all there are times where we both need to recharge. So don't feel that's just you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess what I mean from that is that if one has some introvert tendencies,
Mhm.
sometimes that aids, or it is a
Yeah.
tool to help you hold a boundary, because you
No,
just can't say yes to everything.
you're absolutely right. I completely agree with what you're saying there.
Yeah, it's a like that's a sweet
Mhm.
revelation. And points us in the direction of just get to know yourself. Like get to know yourself.
Mm,
Because for me, sometimes, not always, I'm an omnivert. So now we're starting to discover that the whole experience of introversion and extroversion is very much on the spectrum. And
mm,
it really, like, if you consider it, you could be tipping and leaning one way. So, like, I lean introvert, but I'm mostly extroverted. So, sometimes for me, the biggest way in which I can feel relaxed and replenished is to socialize in a really low stakes setting. So, not socialize networking, but definitely spending family time that is more engaged will recharge me.
Mm,
So I think what's really cool, being clear on your four different values, you can keep checking, like, where am I overweighted? So you were saying, so 'cause none of it is good or bad, but it becomes about capacity. So let's
mhm,
say you're really spending a lot of time investing in your family value.
mhm,
You can still find yourself over capacity and needing to introvert even from them, right? Because I just like got nothing to give now. I got to go use some of that wisdom to go into my independence so that I can come
mhm,
back and have more to offer. Was one of the biggest things I also learned, with all the motherhood stuff, is that it was so important to be present. And it was that the quality of engaging was
mhm,
more relevant than the quantity of the hours. And
mhm,
same thing I saw when we would travel together, you and I, and Teresa, those were the trips that you were on too for business. I'd see you kind of manage some of these non-negotiables. Both of us, I think, have this experience of saying, okay, during the day, I'm focused on the work event that we're attending. I'm not really checking my phone much because I had
mhm,
set up the structure at home to support the child, to support the homework, the home front. Then I'm shifting gears. And in the evening, I have that non-negotiable, I'm calling family at 7 call,
mhm.
right? And so um, it's just beautiful. And I think, thank you for pointing this out, because I think a lot of people manage these kinds of decisions on a day-to-day basis, and it can get very overwhelming. So you're giving us some, how-tos also, in addition to sharing your story.
Mhm. Oh yeah, I think that's just something I had to learn through trial and error. And I think what I realized while traveling, we had to go through um, we had to try a lot of different things when the world started back up again and we began to travel for our jobs again. Is trying a lot of different things to be able to check in and to stay connected with family during the times when you're traveling, because we all know what it's like in traveling. It gets so busy and the days are so long. But what I realized is that it is so incredibly important to somehow stay anchored. Some part of you is to stay anchored at home, to know what's going on at home and to check in at home. And that's something that it took a few iterations to figure out, but for us, it's doing a morning check-in while getting ready in the room in the morning, and then doing an evening check-in before bedtime. And that seems to be the most successful that we've been with traveling is to be able to do those quick check-ins twice a day.
Well, and when you become a mom, like you don't just flip a switch and everything's changed, right? And that's true about so many things, right? We have to make sure that our time, works for us. And we have to change over time as, your kids get bigger or whatever else happens, right? There's different methods of it. So uh we are almost out of time. I told you it goes fast. I always feel it goes so fast, but talk to us for a minute about how this big pivot of becoming a mom right when the pandemic hit, is it your step forward? What's your biggest thing that you'd want to share and how this big pivot was a step forward for you?
Yeah, so I think as what I mentioned before, um, this big pivot really ignited for me a reinvention of myself. It was a step forward in that I learned and still continue to learn today, to be able to come back to myself in a way that's thoughtful and in a way that's grounded and present and authentic.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your story. Evie, I know you have something to add here. I just know it.
I think that Yolanda gave us the perfect way to summarize, everything. And when we sign off, we say thank you. to our listeners and to our audience and to our support community. And we invite them to step into the pivot when they are facing one. And today, let's reinvite everybody to, if you're facing a Kickstarter of a reinvention, step into that reinvention. It can really be, oh, thank you for showcasing a beautiful expansion of your soul and of your experience. So thank you, Yolanda, so much for being here on the show. We appreciate you
Yeah, thank
greatly.
you.
And thank you to my
Mhm.
co-host as well.
Yep. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you again, Yolanda. Thank you to all of our listeners for listening to this episode. We will be back in a couple weeks with another new guest. And remember, if you have a pivot, step into it.